I finally played Clock Tower, and this game had your boy shook from the very moment that I heard that shink shink. It stands as one of the most terrifyingly effective and bloody good horror games I've experienced in some time. Even if it doesn't quite feel like Rewind cuts its way into the modern era without a few scrapes to show for it. So strap in for another ham-eating, giant baby-fleeing episode of the series where we venture well beyond the rose-tinted haze to deliver a modern and fresh take on the games that you love. No sugarcoating, no fluff, no nostalgia. The year is 1995. The dot-com era is officially underway, with still staple websites such as GameFAQs and eBay beginning their infancy, changing how we interact with media and each other forever. Pixar's Toy Story premiered later in the year, raking in nearly $362 million at the box office and legitimizing computer animation as a true contender for our eyes on the silver screen. But most importantly, in my humble opinion, was Sony's PlayStation releasing on September 9th, ushering in a brand new era in the third dimension. While the game of the hour was not initially released for that system, it saw its first release mere days after the 5th gen juggernaut began its reign as one of the greatest video game consoles ever made. 95 saw the wrapping up of the 4th generation, and many of the best games of the era were released in it. And there I was, right in the eye of the proverbial gaming storm. The mid-90s were an incredible time for gamers, both young and old. That overlap of the 4th and 5th generation felt like magic, an embarrassment of riches of sorts. So many incredible games were released from 93 to 97 that left little me simply overwhelmed by it all. But we're here to talk about specifically the year 1995. And in that year, we had many classic fighters such as Tekken 2 and Mortal Kombat 3 dominating local arcades, both showing off different sides of the future of visuals and the way games would continue to push boundaries for the next few years. The Sega Genesis / Mega Drive let us all know that it still had legs, with a couple of the most technically impressive games it ever released, Rise Star and Comic Zone, letting the world know there was still a bit left in the tank for these aging consoles. The SNES and the Super Famicom did the same and gave us Donkey Kong Country 2, as well as a Japanese classic with a plot based around time and initials that are C and T, a breakthrough success, first of its kind, with an updated version due to the PS1 in the years to come. Nah, we ain't talking about that game. We talking about this game, Clock Tower. Now guys, I've low-key been obsessed with this game for years. I mean, confession time, all right? Do you ever find yourself attached oddly to a video game, watching hours and hours of YouTube videos, reading old reviews, interviews, and coverage just to, never actually play the game? Well, that was me.
Until now.
So when WayForward reached out with a key, you can imagine I was ecstatic about finally entering the Barrows mansion, finding out if I could survive the night. And ultimately to let y'all know, is this point and click forefather of the survival horror genre still worth slicing and dicing your way through? Or is this one better left hanging up in the rafters? Well, let's find out. Clock Tower was originally released on September 14th, 1995 in Japan by a company called Human Entertainment on the Super Famicom. Known primarily as a sports game developer, the game's creator, Hifumi Kono, won an internal game development contest that allowed this particular game to proceed. Eventually, an updated version, Clock Tower: The First Fear, was released on July 17, 1997 for the PS1 that was also an exclusive to Japan. With absolutely no official translation ever released here in the West, the game has maintained a certain cult classic status, left solely to fan translations that have captured the vibe of the original, but were never the official text. Fast forward to the modern day and boom, Human limited run games and WayForward bring us the game that I played for this review, Clock Tower Rewind. It may have taken nearly 3 decades, but we finally received an official release of this super important game. Now, the coolest part about this game is that it's what WayForward has coined a port plus, sitting neither as a remake nor a remaster. Its primary goal is to stick as closely to the OG as possible with original sounds, graphics, and gameplay, only backporting in some of the PS1 editions, such as this weird clay lady. But we gotta talk about the origins of Clock Tower, and then we'll see exactly why I think Rewind is the perfect example of a port plus, and how other companies can create definitive versions of classic works. While Hifumi Kono may not be a household name, his influence on the survival horror genre is undeniable. As a massive fan of Italian filmmaker Dario Argento, Kono-san was feeling inspired, specifically by the movies Suspiria, and even more by 1985's Phenomena, which features a lead character named Jennifer, some insane gore, colorful cinematography, and a weird, odd fascination with insects. In some of the additional footage provided as bonus features in Clock Tower Rewind, Kono-san discusses just how much these works meant to him, and it shows.
そのゲーム性だったり、そのインスピレーションはどこから受けたんでしょうか。
結構ね分かりやすく似てたりするんで、ダリオ・アルジェントのやっぱりフェノミナとサスペリア、影響は非常に大きいです。
Kono-san was fascinated by the idea of powerlessness in horrifying situations, a concept he wanted to bring fully to life in Clock Tower. The game's development was handled by a very small team of about 7, as Human was having many financial issues during this time and would eventually fold in the year 2000, with its IPs being gobbled up by Sunsoft Incorporated. Finding original review numbers was pretty tough, but the well-known Japanese outfit Famitsu gave it a 31 out of 40. Sales numbers for the game were also tough to locate, but Hifumi states that it sold, quote, pretty well, and went on to elicit a couple of direct sequels. The franchise has since remained dormant beyond the year 2002. Despite its limited release and cult status, Clock Tower has had a significant impact on the survival horror genre, influencing games such as Resident Evil and even Silent Hill. What WayForward has done with Rewind is both lovingly done and limited in scope, but that was done by design. Co-developed by Hifumi Kono himself, the team's goal was simple: to maintain the integrity of the original and mess with it as little as possible.
All parts of the original experience were left the way that they were. We didn't change any of the art assets, any of the audio assets, or any of the gameplay features. We wanted to make sure that we didn't do anything that compromises the integrity of the original experience. We wanted to keep it as it was, but not to a point that it degrades the experience for people coming in.
This feels like game preservation at its finest, and bro, I'm all for that. If you've never experienced the game, you can just start here. It's way cheaper than tracking down an original cart, is lovingly maintained and pruned for the best feeling way to play it today, and it's just an incredible example of how to do this right. Now, the really cool part about what WayForward is doing right now is that they've created an engine specifically for these Port Plus games called the Carbon Engine. This engine is a suite of game dev tools that allow for a smooth and seamless port of older games such as this and their initial Port Plus game, River City Girls 0. But with that said, let's get into the story and talk a bit about how absolutely
batshit insane it is.
Clock Tower takes absolutely zero time to get you stuck in this shit. You play as Jennifer, a 14-year-old orphan who finds herself alongside 3 other young girls and their handler, Miss Mary, as they move into this creepy-ass looking estate owned by the Barrows family. Now, when Miss Mary takes way too long to return from her initial meeting with the head of the household, Jennifer is tasked with going to find old girl and see when the fuck they can just take a bath or something. Oh, what's that water sound? That's definitely water, right? Oh, great, somebody's in the bath. Oh, fuck. But the crazy thing is, you might not even see this scene. The most incredible and most interesting part of Clock Tower is how out of sequence and different things can happen based largely on what the player character does. Now, the meat of the game can change radically with characters living, dying, various backstabbings, items and scares changing, even entire locations being swapped around altogether. Now, what will be consistent is you being chased by this absolute fucking maniac, Bobby Barrows, aka Scissor Man or Scissor Chump. Look how little this bastard is. And no, I would not say that to his face. You come to find out the origin of Bobby and eventually his brother, Dan, if you come across your own father, who was the doctor that delivered these hell spawns.
Not the orphanage. I used to be an orphan.
But depending on how it all plays out, who you find, etc., you might not even know that much come the end of the game. Interestingly enough, in my initial playthrough, I received the best ending, the S one, which is, surprising because I didn't know what I was doing. I only ended up seeing one character die, poor Laura, and found Lot alive, though she eventually succumbed to her injuries. I killed both Mary and Bobby and critically wounded Dan. Oh, and I also got the worst ending, but yeah, maybe don't get in the car. Anywho, after watching numerous playthroughs of Clock Tower over the years, I know you can end up outside of the Clock Tower, end up being food, and we ain't talking about the MF Doom Classic, and witness the violent ending of your friends and yourself in a variety of ways. The story of Clock Tower is a blast. It's campy, culty, and just the right amount of absurd to make you feel like you stepped right into a B movie via your console or PC of choice. Not to mention there is a giant baby fetus person thing. I mean, wow. And stepping in this game is a point and click affair. Hell yeah, dog, you really nailed that transition. Perfect. This Port Plus maintains much of the game's charm and uniqueness while also giving it just enough of a fresh coat of paint to make it accessible to modern audiences. Now, the cornerstone of this game is a pretty simple conceit. You are powerless. It's run, hide, or die out here for your girl Jennifer, and you do this using a pointer and a bare bones inventory. On the PS5, using the left and right triggers will make you run in that direction. Pointing to a person or object, pressing square allows an interaction, circle brings up your menu of items, and triangle allows Jennifer to rest, something we'll discuss in a bit. Now, the dope shit about Clock Tower's randomization is that it doesn't just impact the story, it really has an impact on the gameplay. While it's dope sometimes and not so dope when you just want to figure out where the hell to go next, but when it's working, it's absolutely incredible. Need to find an item and check behind a curtain? Well, sometimes it's there, and other times it's that little fuckface ready to run through you with his giant shears. Think you're safe because the music stops?
Nah, Goofy, he's coming through the roof right now.
Oh man, is it a cat or is it oh yep, it's him. Dead end. There truly is a meaningful randomizer at play, in a way that I can't think about in a whole lot of other games. In fact, in the behind the scenes interview included in the game, Kono-san is very clear that there is no way to know what will occur when you're playing, regardless of player theories. And because of that, you never really feel all that safe, which is critical to the feel of a game like Clock Tower. Now, frankly, I was amazed just how stressed out I was while playing this game. This is the point and click equivalent of tank controls. You move super slowly, even at a running pace, and because of this, everything feels meaningful and weighty. You will be slamming on the square button, trying to open the door that you know has a hiding place, only to run past it because your cursor missed the position, all the while you hear that shink, 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 right on your ass. And Jennifer doesn't even have health. I mean, you know, if a toddler body baby demon got a hold of a 14-year-old girl, it's a rap, but she does have a panic meter which changes from blue to green to yellow to red, indicating how stressed out she is. And I was right there with her. If it's red and old Bobby gets a hold of you, or the parrot, game over. But if you have some chutzpah left in you, there is a little fight left in our girl to see another day, which comes from mashing X as fast as you can. While this game does an outstanding job maintaining tension at most times, the random nature of the setup can lead to a situation where you're like really stuck, I had maybe 2 or 3 times in my 5 hours playing that I genuinely just did not have an aim. These moments drag and really pull the tension down. I wish there were even more ways to use the randomization to push the game along, because when it's on, it is really on. The game also includes a limited rewind function that frankly didn't do shit for me. The time frame to rewind is so short, it often wasn't even long enough to shake my way out of Bobby's grasp unless I did it right as I died. You also get different save slots, which are a nice feature, as well as a bevy of really awesome extras, from official artwork to old strategy guides, these dope renditions of the old manga brought to life with music and voice acting, and super insightful interview clips with Hifumi Kono himself. Now, it's clear that this game was lovingly made, and while part of me wishes there was even another mode that pushed these updates even further, I love how well they preserved the game and provided just enough quality of life upgrades. The animations have such a fluidity and almost uncanniness that only heightens the feel of this incredibly spooky game. The backgrounds of the Barrows mansion really feel lived in, and the game does a great job of contrasting very dimly lit areas with bright blasts of color that can make specific locations feel so much more unsettling. Scissor Man's body and face are this, like, I don't know, man. This little fucker creeps me out. And his brother Dan is not much better
At all.
Now, some weird visual anomalies and glitches did show up in my game, with certain texture maps going in and out that were a bit distracting. And you can tell they had to cut some corners as far as pushing the animation. Finally, I did have a beef with how similar some of the rooms and areas felt, with certain tile sets repeating way too much, making it hard to find your way around. But like all the other aspects of this game, the way the dev preserved and polished the game, fully intentional in keeping the spirit of the original, was truly a wonderfully haunted experience. The sound design in this game bangs too. There's not much in the way of music, but that's the beauty of it. When you hear that slap delayed hit that punctuates old Sizzy Boy's entrance onto your screen, it's hard not to feel your butt cheeks clench. His theme has this interesting dissonant sound that plays off a single percussive hit with a pulsing bass line and creepy ass laugh that will live right up there in your skull with that bitch ass clown. You know the one. The dead end music also has this classic slasher stab and a single flat tone that lets you know, oh yeah, it's over, time to rewind. Also, the recurring melody you hear when you approach Laura in the bathroom was stuck in my head immediately. You hear this in a few different renditions throughout the game. Still, ultimately, it's a simple arpeggio in the key of D minor that does a great job of building up and down throughout the game, always signifying that something significant and traumatic is coming your way. The version from I'm Looking for Mary was the cornerstone of my beat, titled Completely Unforgettable Trap Shit, or Cuts for short, which I have presented to you here today. Now, if you really mess with it, say, Mary Barrows is my mother down below, and maybe I'll release it for y'all to bang freely on the listening platform of your choice. Now, Clock Tower's music is great, and so are the sound effects. The sound of Bobby's scissors really are iconic. The clomp of Jennifer's feet, and that scream from Jennifer. Man, oh man. There's not a whole lot of sound in this game, but it utilizes it so effectively. The team at WayForward also reached out to Mary Elizabeth McGlynn of Silent Hill fame to put together a new intro song, Sharp Laughter, which utilizes that recurring melody to incredible effect. And when I heard this ending track, I immediately thought, what the fuck? Is that a Nier song? And then I saw it was sung by none other than the ethereal songstress Emmy Evans, known largely for her work in the Nier franchise. I love that they took the time to, again, preserve and polish what was already there. These new songs are really amazing, and combined with the extra features, new animated intro, and the quality of life aspects, it really leads to a game that feels like there was a clear vision in play from the word go. So with all that said, do I think that Clock Tower Rewind is not only worth your time, but also the definitive way to play Clock Tower today? Absolutely, it is. Now, Clock Tower is a slow burn no matter how you play it. It's a pretty esoteric game at times and can sometimes drag to an absolute standstill. And even with the randomization, I think it will lose some of its scare factor upon subsequent replays, even if it'd still be fun as hell to see the different endings and the death scenes. But what Hifumi Kono and the folks at Human Entertainment did back in 1995 was nothing short of groundbreaking. I love the fact that you could have a game back then that didn't know what it was supposed to do. Everything is so refined now, and Clock Tower just does not get the credit it deserves as being a landmark game in the survival horror genre that really put all the pieces together. Games like Alien Isolation, Amnesia, or even hell, the Mr. X aspects of Resident Evil 2 would probably not have been possible without the stalker-centric gameplay of this classic. And what WayForward and the crew over there did to bring this game into the modern era so lovingly is truly appreciated. We can finally officially play Clock Tower without having to rely on patches, translations by fans, or just being like me all these years ago and watching playthroughs on YouTube. While this game is definitely not for everyone, it's the perfect game to sit down and play on Halloween. It's terrifying, sometimes so campy it's funny, and is genuinely packed with thrills and scares that make it just as enjoyable to play today. And hell, it's only 3 to 5 hours long if you don't get super stuck. Even shorter if you just,
Get in the car.
Don't just get in the car. But yeah. Clock Tower is a fantastic game that any horror aficionado should play at least once. Definitely something to experience. So if you're a real one and made it this far, tell me about your history with the game and why you'd like to play it down below. And I'll pick one of those comments next week to send a code to on the house. Now, thanks for watching. If you'd like to hear my thoughts on another horror classic, click here and see what I have to say all about the modern horror banger Signalis. So go enjoy your Halloween, be safe, and watch out for any giant scissors in your Snickers this year. They out there. All right, y'all. Peace.